The music thumped against the windows like a warning. Laughter echoed from inside, too loud, too careless. From the street, it looked like any Saturday night party, string lights, wine glasses, a perfectly curated Instagram moment. But to me, it looked like theft. Because that house was mine, not rented, not borrowed, not used to be mine, still legally, technically, and truthfully mine. And the woman dancing in my mother's kitchen, pouring Prosecco into tall glasses, wearing a smug smile like it fit her, was the one who told me I had no right to be here. But tonight, I wasn't here to ask. I was here to unlock my door. 3 months ago, she said it straight to my face. "You gave it up when you left." She smirked. "No one's going to fight for a house you walked away from." She wasn't entirely wrong. I had walked away after Mom passed, after the funeral, after the family tension bubbled over and broke us apart. I couldn't breathe in that place. The grief, the arguments, the inheritance pressure, it swallowed me whole. So I left. But I never signed anything. I never gave up title. And most importantly, I never gave her the keys. She thought changing the locks meant she owned the place. She thought posting selfies in my mother's dining room made it hers. She thought silence meant surrender. But I'd been silent for a reason. Because I wasn't done gathering everything she forgot, the original deed in my name. The email thread where she admitted just staying temporarily. The notarized letter from my mother before she passed. And the only key that still opened the original lock. I stood at the gate, heart pounding, not with fear, but with clarity. Behind me, parked by the curb, was Claire, my real estate attorney. She stayed in the car as we'd agreed. We weren't here to create a scene. We were here to deliver truth. I took a deep breath, stepped onto the front porch, and slid the original key into the lock. Click, it turned, smooth, effortless. Because the main door, she never replaced it. All those months of strutting around inside, she forgot that the front door still belonged to me. She was too focused on hosting parties, changing wallpaper, and pretending. She forgot the basics. I stepped inside. The music hit me harder. The bass vibrated through the hardwood floors I used to mop with my mother. The hallway smelled like new paint and expensive candles, an artificial effort to erase every memory that came before her. She was in the living room, phone in hand, live streaming with a wide grin. "Just hosting a little housewarming tonight," she said into the camera. "Manifesting abundance, you know how it is." Until she saw me. Her jaw tightened. "What the hell are you doing here?" I didn't respond. I walked to the center of the room and pulled out a folded document from my coat pocket. "This is a copy of the property deed," I said calmly. "Still in my name." Someone laughed nervously. Another guest started backing toward the door. She scoffed. "You're kidding. You don't even live here." "That's true," I said. "But I still own it. And tonight, I'm here to remind you of that." She lunged forward. "Get out of my house." "It's not your house," a voice behind me said. Claire stepped through the door, briefcase in hand. "I'm Rachel's attorney, and you've been occupying private property without authorization. Effective immediately, we're enforcing a formal notice of ownership, and yes, the police have already been notified." The silence that fell was thick and electric. She stared at me, blinking as if this were some kind of nightmare she could will away. But this wasn't a dream. This was reality catching up. She thought I was gone. She thought I wouldn't fight. She thought she could stage a life inside someone else's home, and no one would stop her. But she forgot the most basic rule of all: possession isn't ownership. And she forgot who had the keys. The house didn't always feel like a battlefield. It used to be warm, alive. Mom would hum while she made tea. The scent of cinnamon would drift into the hallway. There were books stacked in uneven towers beside her reading chair. And that crooked little photo of us from my college graduation still stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a sunflower. That house was memory, safety, roots, until Mom got sick, and everything changed. We didn't have much time. One moment she was stubborn and vibrant, arguing over grocery brands, and the next she was in and out of the hospital every other week. Cancer is cruel like that. Quick, quiet, irreversible. By the time she passed, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a graveyard. Of conversations we didn't finish. Of questions I never got to ask. of air that no longer felt mine. So I left. Not because I was abandoning it, but because I couldn't breathe in it. I packed a suitcase and moved into a small apartment across town. Told myself I just needed time. Space. A break from the heaviness that clung to every doorknob and drawer handle. The plan was always to come back. Eventually, that's when she stepped in. Vanessa. She had been around for a few years, Mom's old friend's daughter, or something like that. Younger than me, by maybe 10 years too, bubbly, too eager, always showing up with candles and casseroles, and wide eyes full of admiration. At first, I was grateful. She offered to help keep an eye on the place. Said it was no trouble. Just dusting, maybe watering the plants, making sure everything stayed intact. I said yes. Because when you're grieving, you don't overthink kindness. You cling to it. She brought flowers. She took out the trash. She even sent me photos of the front lawn after she trimmed the hedges. I love this place, she'd say. It just has such a good energy. I believed her. The shift was slow. She started staying overnight, claimed it was to avoid her long commute. Then she moved in just for a few weeks after her roommate situation fell apart. I didn't protest. I was still trying to figure out how to exist outside the walls where my mother had died. I couldn't deal with locks and legalities. I could barely keep my fridge stocked. So when Vanessa offered to cover utilities for now, I nodded. She was helping. She was trustworthy. She was harmless. Until one day, a neighbor called. "Hi, Rachel. I don't mean to intrude, but is your house for sale?" "What, no?" "Well, someone's been showing people around. Says she's the new owner." My blood turned cold. I called Vanessa. She didn't pick up. I texted, read, no reply. The next time I drove by her car was in the driveway. New curtains in the window, a patio umbrella I didn't recognize. And on the mailbox, she had taped her name over mine. I knocked. She answered in leggings and a silk robe, like she lived there. "Vanessa, we need to talk." She rolled her eyes. "About what I've been living here for months. You left. I never gave you permission to move in permanently. I never signed over anything. You abandoned it." She shrugged. "No one lives here but me now. I've made it mine." I stood there stunned. She tilted her head, mock pity in her voice. "You can't just show up and act like you still belong here, Rachel. You gave it up." But here's the thing I hadn't. I still had the deed. I still had the mortgage in my name. I still had my mother's last letter handwritten and dated, stating explicitly that she wanted the home to remain mine. And more importantly, I still had the keys. The original set. The ones she never thought to ask for. She'd changed the spare locks, swapped out some knobs, but the core lock on the front door, still the same, because she assumed I'd never come back. And for a while, she was right. I let weeks pass before I made my next move. I wasn't going to scream on her porch or fight her in front of neighbors. I was going to do what Mom would have done. I called a real estate attorney, Claire. She listened. She didn't flinch. She walked me through every form, every signature I never gave, every violation of occupancy law. "She's squatting," Claire said flatly. Stylishly maybe, but still illegally. We built a file. Every text, every email, the neighbor's voicemail, photos, deed copies, utility records in my name. I didn't reach out to Vanessa again. I didn't need to. She had already shown me who she was, and I had already started showing myself who I was again. It started with the party. I hadn't even planned on checking her profile. I'd blocked her weeks ago for my own peace. But a mutual friend texted me almost apologetically. "Did you see her post? She's throwing a housewarming. Says it's official now." I unblocked, clicked, scrolled. There, it was an Instagram reel gliding through my mother's living room, with polished floors, charcuterie boards, soft jazz in the background. She twirled in front of the fireplace like she was giving a home tour. "Manifestation is real, y'all," she said to the camera. "Claim your space. Claim your future." In the caption, "Welcome to my home." No more waiting. Homeowner energy. Claimed it. Thousands of views. Dozens of comments. "Looks amazing, Vanessa. You earned this. So proud of you for taking what's yours." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just screenshot everything and forwarded it to Claire. Her response came in 3 words: "She's helping us." Vanessa didn't stop with one post. Over the next 2 weeks, she gave interviews on TikTok, posted before and after transformations of rooms she hadn't paid to renovate, and even listed herself as property owner on her professional profile. The comments only fueled her. The more people praised her boldness, the bolder she got. She started throwing small influencer events, marketing them as set in my forever home. I recognized every inch of those backgrounds: Mom's china cabinet, my old bedroom door, the tile I picked out when I was 15. She wasn't just living in my house. She was selling the story that she had earned it. Meanwhile, I was building a different kind of record. Claire helped me gather a full chain of title going back 2 decades. The home had never changed legal hands. My mother's will, though simple, was airtight, and it named me solely. The utilities still in my name. The taxes still paid from my account. And the locks all changed by her, but the master cylinder never replaced. Every time Vanessa posted, Claire added it to a file marked unauthorized occupancy supporting evidence. Every time someone forwarded me her event flyers, we added commercial use of private residence without consent. Every story, every she did it, we didn't fight. We filed. There was a moment about halfway through this chaos when I almost cracked. It was a video of Vanessa in the backyard, swinging in Mom's old hammock, sipping sangria. She said, "People act like you need permission to move forward, but sometimes you just have to stop waiting and walk through the door." The comment that broke me: "You're such an inspiration. I want to take over a space like that too." I cried, because suddenly this wasn't just about my house. It was about the idea that someone could turn invasion into empowerment and get applauded for it. Claire called that night. "You okay?" "No," I admitted. "I feel like she's winning." "She's performing," Claire said gently. "You're preparing." I said nothing, so she added, "When this goes to court, and it will, her performance will be the best evidence we could ask for." She was right, but it didn't make it easier. Then came the misstep. Vanessa submitted a utility transfer request in her name. She wanted to cut me out completely. What she didn't know that required a notarized deed change, and she didn't have one. The company flagged it and notified me per policy. I sent them the deed, the will, the ID, matched the probate documentation. They froze the request and launched a formal inquiry. Claire smiled when I told her. "Now we go public legally. We filed a civil claim for illegal occupation, unlawful enrichment, and trespassing." Claire's tone never rose. Her words were exact. "She may live there now," she said, "but she won't live there much longer." When Vanessa received the formal letter of notice, she posted one final video. In it, she was angry, eyes wide, speaking fast. "They're trying to take this from me. People always try to tear down strong women. But I won't go quietly. I built this. I belong here." The comments weren't as kind this time. A few asked questions. "Wait, didn't someone else own that house? Isn't the title under someone else's name?" For the first time, Vanessa looked rattled. And that's when I knew she had gotten comfortable in a story that was never hers. But I was about to close the book. The hearing was set for 9:00 a.m. sharp. It wasn't a full courtroom, just a formal mediation office, beige walls, and quiet clocks. But the tension in that room, thick enough to cut with a paperclip. Vanessa walked in with her new lawyer, someone she'd found on short notice. She was wearing cream-colored heels and an attitude that said, "I've got this." Her hair curled tighter than I remembered. Her confidence shaky beneath the surface. She didn't look at me. I didn't look at her either. Claire sat beside me, calm and precise, her file stacked 2 inches thick, with every receipt, record, email, and legal document we'd collected over the last 3 months. We weren't here for emotion. We were here for ownership. The mediator, an older woman with silver glasses and a voice like velvet, asked for opening statements. Vanessa's lawyer went first. He leaned into a narrative of emotional equity, claiming Vanessa had invested time, resources, and energy into making the house a livable, loved space. He said she had become emotionally attached and that removing her would cause undue hardship. Vanessa added her own flair. "I took care of that home. I respected it. I brought it back to life when she left it to rot." Claire didn't flinch. When it was our turn, she opened the file, laid out the deed, the will, and the timeline of occupancy violations. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the facts. "Let's start with legal standing," Claire said, voice crisp. "The deed is in Rachel Morgan's name solely. No co-ownership, no transfer, no will amendments, no sale, no rental contract." The mediator nodded. "Confirmed. Deed reviewed." "Second," Claire continued. "Ms. Harris moved in under the guise of temporary caretaking. We have messages that confirm this, including one where she uses the phrase, 'just keeping it warm for you.'" Claire passed the printed screenshots to the mediator. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Third, she made unauthorized cosmetic changes, hosted public events, claimed legal ownership online, and attempted to transfer utilities into her name without documentation or approval." Claire slid over the official rejection letter from the utility company. Vanessa shifted in her chair. "I didn't think she wanted it anymore," she mumbled. The mediator looked over her glasses. "That doesn't override legal title." Vanessa's lawyer jumped in. "But she improved the home. She added value." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Unlicensed alterations without consent do not entitle one to property rights." That's a risk she assumed. "And the locks?" the mediator asked. Claire glanced at me. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small plastic evidence envelope. Inside the original key, unmarked, untouched, and still functional in the core lock. "I never gave it away," I said, "because I never gave up the house." Silence. The kind that settles into people's lungs and makes it hard to breathe. The mediator slowly nodded. "Noted. Original key presented. Title remains unchallenged. No evidence of transfer. Unauthorized occupation confirmed." Vanessa's face crumbled. Not into tears, but into disbelief, like she had truly believed her version of the story would rewrite the facts. That claiming something loudly enough would eventually make it hers. But it didn't. Because stories may sway a crowd, but deeds sway a court. By 10:17 a.m. it was over. The mediator ruled in our favor. Vanessa had 7 days to vacate the property. No compensation, no delay. And if she resisted, a formal eviction would be filed. She didn't look at me when she left. I watched her walk out the glass doors, heels clicking like punctuation marks, to a sentence she never expected to end. I stood outside afterward, under the gray morning sky, holding the keys. Claire smiled gently. "You okay? I am now," I said. Because for the first time in months, I didn't feel erased. I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like a guest in my own life. I felt home. I didn't celebrate. Not really. No posts, no parties, no "I told you so." I just drove to the house the next day, opened the door with the same key my mother once held, and stepped into the quiet. No music, no wine glasses, no false claims. Just me. A home, and a lock that turned because it remembered me. The morning after the ruling, I returned to the house alone. No cameras, no applause, no dramatic music playing in the background, just me, a quiet key, and a door that had once felt too heavy to touch. It clicked open like it always had. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. The rooms were quiet, the air was still, no laughter, no furniture out of place, no strangers in the kitchen pretending they belonged. I walked through each hallway, slowly breathing in something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not triumph, not revenge, just belonging. I didn't come back to reclaim a house. I came back to reclaim my place in the story. Because for too long, I'd believed I didn't deserve to fight for what was mine. I'd let someone else rewrite the narrative, convinced myself that silence was easier than confrontation. But silence isn't surrender. It's strategy if you know when to speak again. I lit a candle in Mom's old room, sat on the edge of her bed, closed my eyes, and I whispered I didn't let go. I just needed time. And I came back with everything you taught me, strength, grace, and the truth in my pocket. Some people think power is loud. It shouts, it posts, it storms into rooms demanding attention. But I've learned that true power is knowing who you are, even when no one claps, even when they take the lights away. True power is remembering you never needed their permission. Just your name, your proof, and sometimes your original key. I didn't want to ruin Vanessa. I just wanted her gone. Because no matter how confidently someone enters a space that doesn't belong to them, the lock will always remember the real owner. And in the end, it remembered me. Have you ever been pushed out of a place, a dream, a life, only to find your way back stronger? Tell your story in the comments. Because the door they locked, it might still open. If you're holding the key, they forgot you had. Share your moment. We're listening and rooting for your return.